the acting job, I accepted it, never realizing that it would...
The John Wayne Mansion investigation started as routine preservation work. It ended with scientists calling for federal intervention. Behind a false wall in his study, they found a collection that violated every law of physics. Ancient masks that seemed to watch them. Medicine bundles that made compass needles spin wildly. Wayne's final diary entries, hidden for 45 years, describe voices in the night and shadows that moved on their own. He wrote about paying the price and keeping the balance. The most chilling discovery? Evidence suggests Wayne wasn't collecting these artifacts. They were collecting him. Now experts are asking terrifying questions. John Wayne came into the world on May 26, 1907, in Winterset, a quiet Iowa town where people still talked in soft voices and read the local paper every evening. The paper printed something wild 4 days after his birth. They wrote that baby Marion Robert Morrison weighed 13 pounds. People joked that no newborn should be that big unless he planned to grow into someone larger than life. And in some strange way, that hint was already there. Even in his early years, little things kept shaping him. When he was just 3, he slipped into an icy creek and would have died if a stranger hadn't pulled him out. That kind of rescue leaves a mark. It places a quiet strength inside a boy before he even understands the world. His name shifted too. First he was Marion Robert. Then his parents renamed the second child Robert. So Marion became Marion Mitchell. It felt like the world kept nudging him toward new identities. Then, in 1914, the Morrisons packed everything and moved to Glendale after his father's business collapsed. It was hard, but something new started there. Marion walked everywhere with his giant Airedale Terrier. The dog's name was Duke. Soon people around town started calling the boy Big Duke and the dog Little Duke. The nickname stuck to him like glue. School wasn't the only place he pushed himself. Football felt like freedom to him. By 1925, he earned a scholarship to USC, studying pre-law and joining Sigma Chi. Life looked steady until a body surfing accident smashed his shoulder. The pain ended his scholarship and any dream of a football future. It felt like a door slamming shut, but another door opened just because he needed work. He took a job at Fox Studios in 1927, hauling props for $35 a week. He didn't know it yet, but walking into that studio would change everything. In those first years, nobody looked at him like a future star. They tossed him into tiny extra roles. He even played a football player in the 1926 film Brown of Harvard, without ever hearing his name in the credits. But he kept working, and slowly, he crossed paths with John Ford. Ford noticed something in him, the height, the presence, the hunger. He gave him advice. Then he pushed him toward a new name. Marion Morrison didn't fit the kind of stories Hollywood wanted from him. They played with options for a while. Finally, they settled on John Wayne. It sounded strong, clean, made for a movie poster. Still, the climb was rough. Between 1930 and 1939, he appeared in more than 80 films. They were rushed B-westerns, shot in 2 or 3 days. He lived on cans of beans, warmed on a cheap hot plate, in a tiny room. Some nights, he even thought about quitting. By 1938, he was close to giving up, but everything changed the next year in a way he never saw coming. Stagecoach arrived like a jolt in his life. John Ford had to fight studio executives who wanted Gary Cooper instead. Ford refused to budge. And when Wayne rode into frame as the Ringo Kid, the camera pushed in on his face, and something electric happened. That short moment took 27 takes and nearly an entire day, but it made Wayne unforgettable. Stagecoach earned 7 Oscar nominations and turned him into a star overnight. Yet Wayne made only $3,700 for the role. It didn't matter. A path had finally opened. From there, he slipped into roles that shaped how America imagined courage. Between 1940 and 1976, he appeared in more than 170 films, westerns, war stories, men standing tall even when the world fell apart around them. He insisted on doing his own stunts long after most actors would have stopped. During the Alamo in 1960, he cracked ribs and hurt his lung after being thrown from a horse. But he didn't walk off set. He got up and kept filming because that was who he was. And yes, people talked about the fact that he never served in the military. That truth followed him around. He applied to the OSS once and got rejected. Maybe that rejection pushed him harder in films like Sands of Iwo Jima in 1949. His performance convinced viewers he must have known real battle. The film earned him his first Oscar nomination. His pride rose with it. His image grew even bigger. But behind all of this stood something even more powerful. His work with John Ford shaped him for decades. Their friendship was full of admiration and clashes. Ford could be cruel. He pushed Wayne to repeat tiny movements again and again. On The Searchers in 1956, he made him redo a simple gun pickup 17 times. Wayne never complained. Ford believed that the pressure created better performances, and Wayne trusted him. Their final film together, Donovan's Reef in 1963, almost collapsed because both men were worn down. Ford was in poor health, sometimes directing from a stretcher. Wayne felt too old for the part, but they pushed through it anyway. Sands of Iwo Jima brought Wayne into a new level of fame, but its production nearly broke him. Real explosives, real flamethrowers. On August 17, 1949, a mistimed blast knocked him unconscious for almost 30 minutes. Filming stopped for 2 days. The movie blended 2,000 feet of real Iwo Jima combat footage with staged shots. It felt real because, in many ways, it was. And it still wasn't enough to win him the Oscar. Broderick Crawford beat him that year. It stung, but Wayne kept going. Then came the Alamo, his giant dream. He spent more than 15 years trying to make it. He mortgaged almost everything he owned to help cover the $12 million budget. The full-scale set built in Texas used more than 1.5 million adobe bricks and took 2 years to finish. He directed it, starred in it, fought through endless delays and scorching heat, and even an accident that left an extra needing 26 stitches. The premiere in San Antonio was huge, with a parade of hundreds of horses. The film earned $17 million, respectable, but not enough to erase the mountain of debt. It collected 7 Oscar nominations, but none for his directing, and that hurt him deeply. A few years later, True Grit arrived like a quiet redemption. He was 61. He had survived lung cancer in 1964. He didn't think he could play Rooster Cogburn, but once he stepped into the role, something clicked. Filming in Colorado's cold mountain air drained him. Some days, he needed oxygen between takes. On September 18, 1968, his horse stumbled on a steep hill and nearly threw him. He tore a shoulder muscle but kept shooting. When he won the Oscar on April 7, 1970, he smiled through a fever of 103 degrees. He joked about putting on the patch 35 years earlier. People said the award was really for his whole career, not just this one role. Wayne agreed quietly. But his life carried shadows, too. His political views grew sharper as he aged. He supported the anti-communist movement, even backing Joseph McCarthy during the 1950s. For a brief moment in 1962, he joined the John Birch Society, then left 3 months later when they accused President Eisenhower of being a Soviet agent. And in his 1971 Playboy interview, he said things about Black Americans and Native Americans that still stain his legacy. Statements about white supremacy, statements dismissing the suffering of Native people, words that shook people decades later. In 2016, the California State Assembly rejected a plan for John Wayne Day because of those comments. The vote was 36-19. Yet, behind the public fights and firm opinions, he had deep friendships. Maureen O'Hara stood by him all her life. John Ford challenged him and shaped him more than anyone. He argued politics with Kirk Douglas, but never let it ruin their bond. He shared laughter with Sammy Davis Jr. and encouraged Ronald Reagan long before Reagan stood in politics. His friendships showed sides of him that didn't always match the man people saw in interviews. And then there was the quieter John Wayne, the one people rarely think about. He loved chess. He carried a board everywhere and played on set whenever he could. In 1973, he even played a match against a computer at a national tech conference in New York. But his greatest escape was the Wild Goose, the 136-foot yacht he bought in 1962 for $116,000. He spent roughly $4 million more turning it into his floating sanctuary. He raised the ceilings for his 6'4" frame, added 5 staterooms, a fireplace, a poker table, and room for more than 120 guests. He said he would never sell it. But before he died in 1979, he let it go, so his affairs would be easier to settle. Today, the yacht sits in Newport Beach, hosting events and tours. Some say his spirit lingers there. His daughter Marissa still wishes someone would restore it to its original form. John Wayne's story with love never moved in a straight line. It stretched across 3 marriages, nearly 50 years, and a lifetime of rising fame that kept pulling him in and out of trouble. It began in 1933 when he married Josephine Syons. His career was climbing fast, and the world was finally noticing him. They had 4 children together and tried to build something steady, but the pace of his life kept pulling him away. By 1938, he had fallen into a passionate affair with Marlene Dietrich, and that secret pulled at the seams of his marriage. He tried to fix things. He even took Josephine on a trip to Mexico in 1943, hoping they could find each other again, but the distance had already settled in. Their marriage ended in 1945. A year later, he married Esperanza Bauer. She had been an actress in Mexico, full of fire and jealousy. The marriage burned fast. She was convinced he was having an affair with Gail Russell while filming Angel and the Bad Man in 1947, and her fear turned into rage. One night, when Wayne walked through the front door after a cast party, she was drunk and waiting. She tried to shoot him as he entered. The bullet missed, but the message did not. Their marriage dragged on until 1954, filled with fights and suspicion, and finally collapsed. That same year, he married Pilar Palette, and for a while it felt like calm after a long storm. They had 3 children and built a home that looked more stable than anything he had before. Yet even this peace had its cracks. By 1973, the marriage had quietly fallen apart. He did not divorce Pilar, but he moved on and began living with his former secretary, Pat Stacey. Even so, Pilar remained his legal wife until he died in 1979. Through all of this, there was the fire he shared with Marlene Dietrich, a bond that lit up nearly 10 years of his life. Their affair started in 1938 during the making of 7 Sinners. She had power in Hollywood, and she used it for him. She insisted he be cast opposite her. Their chemistry showed up on film in a way no director could fake. They made The Spoilers in 1942. They made Pittsburgh the same year. People whispered when Wayne left her house at sunrise. Dietrich wrote him letters filled with longing. He answered with the same hunger. He loved her, even when guilt gripped him, and she kept calling him the love of her life long after the affair ended in 1947. And then there was Maureen O'Hara. Their connection confused people for decades. They met in 1939 and worked together again and again. Rio Grande in 1950, The Quiet Man in 1952. Their scenes felt so real that strangers stopped O'Hara and congratulated her on Wayne's children, thinking she was their mother. Wayne's kids even called her Auntie Maureen. They denied everything, but the spark between them was impossible to ignore. Years later, in 2023, O'Hara's grandson quietly confirmed that they did share a brief romance, though he added that she was far too strong for him. Their friendship lasted almost 40 years. When Wayne was dying of cancer in 1978, O'Hara traveled to Congress to fight for him. She pushed for him to receive a congressional medal. He did. She stood for him when his own strength was slipping away. But the person who stayed with him in the last stretch of his life was Pat Stacey. She entered the picture in 1973 after his separation from Pilar. She was born in 1941 and much younger than him, but she became the calm he leaned on. They lived together until he died in 1979. She cared for him through his final illness, kept his home running, and stood by him in public when his body was failing. People gossiped about the age gap. They gossiped about the fact that he was still legally married. Wayne didn't care. He stayed with the person who made his last years softer. After he died, she wrote a book called Duke in 1983, showing the world a quieter version of him, a man full of fear and kindness and exhaustion. Pat never married again. She died in 1995. Wayne had been fighting cancer since 1964, when doctors told him he had lung cancer at the age of 57. He had been smoking up to 6 packs a day for years, and the damage had caught up with him. Surgeons removed his entire left lung and 2 ribs. The survival rate then was only 50%. He lived. For 5 years, he stayed cancer-free. Instead of hiding his illness, he talked about it in public. He warned people to get checked. He filmed ads urging cancer research. He helped people see the disease without shame and introduced a phrase that stuck, the Big C. But in 1979, cancer found him again. This time, it was in his stomach. He entered an experimental vaccine study, kept working, kept fighting, and even filmed public messages from his hospital bed. In one of his final statements, he told the public that a cure might come one day with or without their help, but that betting their lives on waiting was a risk no one should take. His last film, The Shootist, in 1976, carried an eerie weight because it told the story of a dying gunfighter looking for a clean way to leave the world. Wayne was 68 when he filmed it. His breath was short, his body was tired, yet he kept performing his own stunts, including painful falls onto a hardwood floor. He needed oxygen between takes, but never complained. Reviewers felt the truth under his performance. Vincent Canby said Wayne was at his most forceful. Roger Ebert called the film special. Wayne even changed the ending. In the book, the character dies from a shot in the back. Wayne refused. He said he had never played a man who shot someone in the back or died that way. The film earned $13.4 million and became his last beau on screen. He died on June 11, 1979, at 5:23 in the evening at UCLA Medical Center. He was 72. The news traveled everywhere in minutes. President Jimmy Carter said the country had lost a genuine hero. Fans flooded the hospital and his Newport Beach home. They left hats, notes, flowers. His star on the Walk of Fame disappeared under candles. His funeral on June 15th was private, but a public memorial on June 27th drew 25 million viewers on television. Orange County renamed its airport after him that same year. Grief spread across the country because people felt they had lost the final piece of an older America. His family knew his wish. He wanted his name to help fight cancer. So in 1985, they created the John Wayne Cancer Foundation. Its mission was simple: courage, strength, grit. The foundation funded research, education, and youth programs. It helped create the John Wayne Cancer Institute, which pioneered sentinel lymph node biopsy, a breakthrough for melanoma and breast cancer treatment. By 2025, more than 170 oncologists trained through Wayne's programs were working across the world. The foundation raised over $5 million in 2024 alone, sending 90% of it straight into research and prevention. When Wayne died, his estate was valued at $6.85 million. Adjusted to 2025 standards, it sits around $25 million. People were shocked because he had been one of Hollywood's highest-paid actors. His estate included about $1 million in real estate and $6 million in personal assets. He earned roughly $100,000 each year in passive income, equal to about $350,000 today. He had earned far more during his lifetime. True Grit alone paid him $1 million up front, plus 10% of the gross. But Wayne was generous, and he spent freely. He had sold his beloved yacht, the Wild Goose, for $750,000 shortly before his death. and it was not part of the estate. His Newport Beach home was his pride. He bought it in 1965 and lived there until he died. From the street, it looked small, but once you stepped inside, it opened into a wide, warm space that faced the water and Balboa Island. After his death, it sold for $5.5 million in 1980. By 2011, it was listed again for $3.95 million. Before that home, he had lived on a 5-acre ranch in Encino, but at 58, he moved south to the quiet of Orange County. He liked saying he was glad he came when he did, because he sure could not afford the place anymore. His memorabilia told its own story. In 2011, more than 700 items were put up for auction and brought in $5.38 million. A green wool beret from the Green Berets sold for $179,250. His Golden Globe for True Grit sold for $143,400. His eye patch from True Grit sold for $47,800. Even his last driver's license sold for $89,625, the highest price ever paid for a permanent license. His firearms also drew bidders, including a Winchester Centennial rifle that sold for $13,315. His will added more tension. He left out Pilar entirely, even though they had been married more than 20 years. They had separated in 1973 but never divorced, yet he did not include her in the estate. Instead, he divided everything among his 7 children. The will stirred disputes for decades. In 2010, his daughter Aisa sued her brother Ethan and John Wayne Enterprises, trying to force a buyout of her share. Some of the bequests included personal items that carried emotional value, and their uneven distribution sparked arguments that lingered long after Wayne was gone. John Wayne spent his whole life playing the strong man on screen. But when you start looking behind the curtain, the picture grows wider and heavier little by little. It begins with the rooms he filled and the things he kept close. And soon, you see a man who lived surrounded by thousands of stories that were not always his to hold. His collection of Native American art was one of the first surprises people discovered. More than 3,000 pieces filled his homes, everything from Navajo rugs and Hopi Kachina dolls to Pueblo pottery and beadwork, so detailed it looked alive. His fascination started back in the 1940s, during those long film shoots in Monument Valley, where he spent time with Navajo families and traded props for real treasures. It grew from curiosity into something huge. He owned a 19th century Navajo chief's blanket worth over $500,000 today. He kept rare Apache war shirts decorated with human scalp locks tucked away because he knew how controversial they were. In 1972, he even commissioned a run of 25 Navajo rugs with his own face woven into them. One of those sold for $1.2 million in 2018. And tucked among all of this were sacred items, medicine bundles, ceremonial masks, artifacts that were never meant to sit in a private room. That part of his story still creates arguments today. When he died in 1979, he gifted 81 Kachina dolls to the National Cowboy and Western Heritage Museum, leaving behind a legacy that is both admired and questioned at the same time. As you move deeper into his private world, a softer layer appears. John Wayne, the rough cowboy, had a personal library of more than 15,000 books. He read poetry, war history, politics, classic literature. He owned every one of Churchill's books and even had a signed copy of the Second World War series. And then you find the shelves full of communist theory, more than 200 books by Marx, Lenin, Mao. He marked them up with notes as if he were arguing with the pages. People never saw that side of him. On film sets, he played chess between takes, sometimes beating crew members who underestimated him. In 1967, he even played a televised match against Boris Spassky that lasted 45 moves and ended in a draw. His custom chess set later sold for $143,000. And quietly, in the late hours of the night, he wrote poetry. More than 100 poems. Only 50 copies of his private collection, Sagebrush Soliloquies, were printed in 1978 and handed to close friends. It was a side of him the world barely glimpsed. Then, in 2015, a large box of letters surfaced, about 3,000 pieces of correspondence from across 5 decades, and they opened the door even wider. In one letter from 1959 to John Ford, he complained that Hollywood was turning into a circus. In the mid-1960s, he wrote privately to Lyndon Johnson praising parts of the Great Society. It shocked many because he always projected a hard conservative stance in public. In 1971, he told Sidney Poitier he had been wrong about many things in life and that the treatment of Black Americans was a shame. Later, he clashed with Ronald Reagan over the Panama Canal Treaties. In a letter dated September 12, 1977, he told Reagan that true patriotism sometimes meant supporting what was best for the country, even if your party disagreed. The letters were raw and unfiltered, revealing a man far more complicated than the characters he played. Still, nothing stirred his legacy like his Playboy interview on May 1, 1971. In that conversation, he made remarks that still echo, including a statement about white supremacy that the public has never forgotten. He also defended the taking of native lands and used slurs when referencing Midnight Cowboy. These words resurfaced again in 2019 after a single tweet reignited national anger. Debates exploded. People questioned whether he should still be honored in public spaces. And once that door opened, more parts of his life were pulled into view. His 81 Kachina dolls added another layer of complexity. He collected them over decades. His first was a Hemis Kachina he bought in the early 1950s for $500 and a signed poster. He chased the rare ones, the sacred ones, even the Zuni war god Kachina that by belief should never leave tribal lands. That one alone is worth more than $250,000 today and remains one of the most debated items he owned. He even commissioned custom kachinas from Manfred Susunkawa in 1968, 5 dolls blending his face with traditional designs. One sold in 2020 for $1.8 million. He owned action kachinas with movable parts. A 4-foot-tall Shalako kachina with a rotating head was insured for more than $500,000. And in 1975, he narrated a documentary about them, showing a genuine fascination that sat strangely beside the controversies his collection created. The debates around him soon moved into public spaces. John Wayne Airport in Orange County became a lightning point. The airport was renamed in 1979, but by June 2020, during the nationwide protests following George Floyd's murder, local leaders pushed to remove his name, pointing to his 1971 remarks. The county had changed over the years. By 2018, Democrats had won all 7 congressional seats there, marking a shift in culture and values. Supporters of the name change said keeping his name sent the wrong message. Opponents said erasing history solved nothing. His son Ethan stepped forward, insisting his father was not the man those old quotes suggested. The arguments continue even into 2025. That same year, USC removed their John Wayne exhibit. The School of Cinematic Arts had displayed it since 2012, but student activists pushed for its removal, saying it made students of color feel unwelcome. On July 10, 2020, the exhibit came down. USC explained that conversations about systemic racism required new reflection. Some called the decision necessary. Others said it was revisionist. It revealed how difficult it has become for institutions to decide how to honor historical figures with complicated legacies. Through all this, people kept returning to one question: can you separate the art from the artist? Some say yes. They see films like The Searchers, Rio Bravo, and The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance as American classics that shaped generations of storytelling. Others say the man behind those films carried views harmful enough to stain the work itself. The arguments flow through film schools, critics, social media, living rooms, and still, no answer feels complete. Inside his own family, the tension stretches even further. When he died in 1979, his estate was worth $6.85 million, which equals more than $26 million in 2025. His will used a strange formula that gave each child $5,000 multiplied by their age minus 21. Older children got more. Younger ones got much less. And buried deep inside was a line that forbade his daughter, Ronnie's husband, Donald L. Cava, from ever receiving money from her share. That one sentence has sparked decades of speculation. Over the years, those quiet cracks widened. In 2006, Ethan Wayne became locked in a battle with the widow of his half-brother Michael over memorabilia like the True Grit eye patch and Wayne's last driver's license. Then in 2010, Asa Wayne sued Ethan and John Wayne Enterprises, arguing over the value of the company. She said $15.4 million. Ethan said $10.7 million. It showed how fractured the family had become and how large Wayne's legacy still was. Managing that legacy has been just as complicated. In 2011, John Wayne Enterprises auctioned more than 700 personal items, bringing in $5.38 million. In 2014, the company clashed with Duke University over the use of the name Duke for bourbon. Then the brand expanded into wines, spirits, merchandise, and even a podcast called The John Wayne Gritcast in 2022. Some people loved the modern touch. Others felt it drifted too far from who he was. And even within the family, they cannot agree on how to carry his name forward. Ethan often acknowledges the pain caused by his father's words, while defending the rest of his legacy. Asa stands firm that attempts to cancel him are unfair and incomplete. Some grandchildren even sued the estate in 2014, arguing they were left out of decisions about his name and image.